With many of the Texas Democrats now hunkering down in Illinois, that state's governor, Democrat J.B. Pritzker, is accusing President Trump of trying to undermine democracy with his redistricting push.
Well, remember that what Texas is trying to do is, again, violate the Voting Rights Act. What's even rarer is to do it at the behest of the President of the United States, who's clearly attempting to and says that he deserves to have 5 more seats. He's wrong. And he's attempting to change the game because, again, he passed this big, ugly bill. It's hyper unpopular in Texas, among people in Texas, and across the country.
I'm joined now by Jamie Harrison, former chair of the DNC and host of the new podcast, At Our Table. And congrats on that. Sounds like you're having a lot of fun with it. But there's a lot of serious stuff you're talking about. So do you agree with Governor Pritzker? And what do you say to critics who say Democrats are being hypocritical for threatening to redistrict blue states?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with Governor Pritzker. And, it's about time that Democrats fight fire with fire. The only reason why we're talking about this is because Trump said, and he's on the record, he's bragging about how he is trying to pick up 5 seats in Texas and wants to pick up more seats. And the reason why is because he understands and he sees what we see. Democratic momentum is building. We're winning special election after special election. Our Democrats are overperforming in some of the elections that have already been had. We're going to win in New Jersey. We're going to win in Virginia. And it's all because of Donald Trump and his overreach. It's because he has not fulfilled the promises that he made to the American people. And he knows that he's on the verge of losing the House of Representatives in 2026. And the only way that he can keep control is by using all of the crookery that he knows in order to steal seats from the American people. But Democrats aren't going to sit on the sidelines. We're not going to be over in a corner with a handkerchief crying, saying, oh, look at what Donald Trump is going to do. So if they believe that they can't live by these rules, then Democrats are going to use their same tactics in the states in which we control.
Fight fire with fire. But here's a question. It's this whole thing escalating the fight over redistricting. Does it make the endangered moderate even more endangered?
Well, Alice, you remember when Joe Biden was president, one of the bills that Democrats authored and tried to get passed was a John Lewis voting rights bill in the House. And that would have changed how districts are drawn in all 50 states, not just in blue states or red states, but all 50 states. Because I ultimately believe that this ultra-partisan gerrymandering is a cancer to our democracy in general. It eliminates that middle in our body politic, and it allows the most extreme folks in order to move forward in terms of choosing who represents them in Congress. And that's part of the gridlock that we have in Congress right now. So Democrats, I think, wholeheartedly believe that we need to get rid of that. But we don't believe that it's just relegated to getting rid of it in blue states and allowing Republicans to do whatever the hell they want to do in red states. And so, therefore, it is about moving forward all together. If we're going to tackle this issue, we got to tackle it in all 50 states, not just in Democratic states.
So how do we turn down the temperature?
Well, one of the things that I think we need is we actually need a Congress that actually has a backbone. We need a Congress who will work, and Democrats will always try to work in a bipartisan fashion. You saw it during Joe Biden's administration. The president talked about it often. You saw it when Democrats were in control of the House and Senate, passing bipartisan infrastructure. But Republicans don't believe in that. They believe in power and for power's sake. And so, therefore, you've got to have a check somewhere in the system. Right now, Speaker Johnson is just some rubber stamp. He doesn't even control his own conference. Donald Trump does. But, there are 3 parts of our government. There's a federal, there's an executive, there's a legislative, and there's a judicial. And right now, the Republicans kind of control all of it. And as a result, they are doing whatever Donald Trump wants to do, regardless of whether or not it's constitutional or not. And the American people deserve a check. We got to make sure that we stand with the Constitution of the United States. It's not about one individual. It's about the rule of law for all of us.
Yeah. 100%. Let's talk about your podcast, actually. Interesting to note that 3 of your first 4 guests happen to be governors, Tim Walz, Wes Moore, Andy Beshear. Why did you choose them?
Well, right now, a lot of the fight for our rights and our freedoms and to secure democracy is happening within the states. And these are 3 of our some of the best governors we have in the country. And we got our bench of governors is so deep. And so what I wanted in this podcast is, one, for the American people to get to know who these people are outside of those folks who know them in their own states. Andy Beshear said it so perfectly in the episode that we had this week. It is about figuring out the why for people. Why are we doing this? Why are we fighting so hard for these rights that we have? And what I wanted to do is to break past these caricatures that we see. Oftentimes, many of these people get 2 or 3 minutes on TV, and you only get a snippet of who they really are, what motivates them, what their fears are. And what I wanted to do is to have a family conversation where it's somebody that they trust, and we're sitting there and we're talking about what they're doing in their states, what they're fearful of right now going on in our country at large, but also what their answers are for some of the problems that we are facing. And so these have been great conversations. Next week, I have Dr. Annie Andrews, who's against Lindsey Graham for the U.S. Senate, something that I know a lot about. She's going to be on, and we're going to talk about the need of having a pediatrician in the United States Senate. And so great conversations coming up, and we're going to have a lot of great guests.